fellow travelers along the path of the beam. I'm known on this level of the tower as Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for some brief palaver on Hail to Stephen King. That's right, my favorite author, as you see by that tower of tomes that is just behind me there. Thank you so very much. You can call me Fuego for short, and welcome to the horror show. And the reason I say brief is because, unfortunately, here in the Calahante camp, yeah, that's right, the birth name, in the Chiron camp specifically, we had a serious shakeup today, regrettably, and so, yeah, I was originally, I had one very lengthy episode idea in place, and then when I came home today, ironically, I got this in the mail. Shivers 8, that's right, Shivers 8 from Cemetery Dance, and this is actually something that took a lot longer to see its publication than I had initially anticipated, because I pre-ordered this 2 years ago, and yeah, CD, as I all too often call them, they had some issues with a printing press, and so a deluxe anniversary edition of Night Shift that I have pre-ordered has still yet been able to ship, and neither has the Sleeping Beauties deluxe edition that I also ordered shortly after this one. Both of those are behind schedule, regrettably. But yeah, Night Shift is going to be awesome because they're adding a couple additional Psy King short stories, one of which, The Glass Floor, if I recall correctly, that has never been published, and so that's pretty awesome, that's pretty exciting. But just to give a little bit of background about Cemetery Dance, they have done some of my absolute favorite deluxe editions, like, period, of Psy King stuff that I've collected over the years. There's also Subterranean Press and PS Publishing. Those are like the two others that are my go-tos, but CD is my absolute favorite, and if you refer back to a video that I did, about a year and a half ago now here on Hail to Stephen King, which is officially beyond the 150 mark, yes, boy, I have an amazing From a Buick 8 edition from them. The 25th anniversary of it is fantastic. Full Dark No Stars, both of the Secretary of Dreams, which are really awesome, with Glenn Chadbourne, if I recall correctly, doing all of this just beautiful painted looking, just it's painted looking in appearance, but it's really just this insanely detailed hand-drawn black and white artwork for a bunch of different Psy King short stories, Dr. Sleep, and then they have slowly been doing the Doubleday years. So I have Carrie, I have Salem's Lot, I have, yeah, The Shining. Man, it's been a great bit of acquisition so far, but I also have a few of their others, like Screenplays is one. They were the original publishers of Blockade Billy. Flight or Fright, the list goes on and on, but I have Shivers 7, and that had another Psy King short story in it, as does this one. So number 8, it has like about 24 different people actually, you know, just tossing stuff on here. We've got Brian James Freeman, we have my dude Blue, Jillian, hell yeah man, we've got Vincent, we've got Richard Christian Matheson, the son of, you know, the very well-known Matheson, and just various others. And there's a Psy King short story on here, and it was one of the main reasons why I pre-ordered this, and it's called Squad D. And Squad D was originally submitted to, I think, just one publisher back in the late 70s, when King's career was just first really starting to kick off, and apparently it was turned down. It was said to need just a little bit of tinkering and so on and so forth, but it is seeing its first publication in here today. Yeah, and that's extremely exciting when you come home and, you know, I had a little band meeting, and then I come home and I see Shivers 8 has finally made its way to my door, and it's just sitting right there in the snail maily boxing, and yes, a Psy King story that I have never read before. And so Squad D was an interesting read. Not very long, about like 10, 11 and a half pages, something like that. And it's one that it really deals with just the lingering aspects of grief, I would say, and the blame that all too often comes with it, and also survivor's grief, which is something that was in boy, at least one story in particular from The Things They Left Behind. which was from Just After Sunset. Just After Sunset being one of my absolute favorite collections, but that was dealing with the grief from having survived 9/11, whereas this particular case for Squad D, it's dealing with Vietnam. And so a very poignant just kind of setup for the sheer fact that I just got done reading Hearts in Suspension in its entirety earlier this year, just a couple months ago when I was on my trip to Charlotte to cover Mad Monster Charlotte for the horror show here. And yeah, just basically to give the setup there, it's told from the perspective of a father named Dale, whose son passed away in Vietnam, and on top of that, his wife Andrea, yeah, she ended up drinking herself to death after everything went down. And their son, his name is Billy. So yeah, it's the Clusen family, and so the story basically starts out. Billy Clusen died all at once with 9 of the 10 other brothers of D Squad on April 8th, 1974. It took his mother 2 years, but she got started right away on the afternoon. The telegram announcing her son's death came in fact. So basically, yeah, she got started on dying right after finding out that her son had died, and she drinks herself to death. And yeah, told from Dale's perspective, it's a few years later, and it's on that same day in the fact that, I mean, it's not the same day in April, but the fact that it's 45 years later, the fact that it's in April, the fact that we had, yeah, it's been a rough month here in April for the Chiron clan and for just you know, friends of mine in general. But yeah, lo and behold, this picture which was sent. So there was essentially. There was a photograph sent along with a letter from the one surviving member of D Squad. And that one surviving member of D Squad, ironically, as you find out in the story, is from Castle Rock. And so the twist in the story has to do with that person in particular. And the fact that, you know, being the anniversary of the kid's death, Dale, the father, he is, you know, he's thinking about his wife who passed away, and obviously thinking about Billy, his son. And so he has broken out some of the old stuff from back then, and he's broken out the letter from the lieutenant that was giving condolences, but yet he's also broken out the letter from the one surviving member. And the one surviving member has, some might say a convenient, like chicken shit sort of reason for having not been there with the other 9 members, including their son Billy, to die as well. And so, for whatever reason, father decides to, you know, in the midst of all of this recollection and all of this, in the midst of this mourning and this grief about his son being the anniversary of his death, he decides to consult the, you know, consult the directories and give a call to Castle Rock, and specifically to the, you know, listed directory of said son, said survivor, and we find out that something has befallen said survivor. And that's where I really don't want to spoil this story, for the sheer fact that if you get the opportunity, I'm not sure, I don't believe it's completely sold out, and even if it's not completely sold out, you can still probably track this down on Amazon or a few different, like an eBay and various different, you know, resellers and stuff like that. But Richard Chismar, who was the one who edited this, and, you know, just that awesome amount of other people. I seriously just got home about an hour or so ago. Had some news broken to me earlier this morning, which was of the rough variety, and this story was there when I needed it to be today. And it didn't necessarily like make me feel better, but it kind of made me feel like, okay, you're not alone. You're not the only person who has experienced, you know, sudden and unexpected loss. And you know, I'm not here to just gush about personal things of that degree. I'm here to talk about Psy King, everybody. But I would imagine that as all of their collections that they put together, that I had Shivers 6 and I had Shivers 7, if I remember correctly, which had the Crate was one, and then the Lonesome Death of, or Weeds, which was what it was originally called, and Weeds was what they turned that segment in Creepshow into, the one that Psy King turned, actually had his turn as a star in, where he, touches the meteor and then he starts getting all the weeds and like weird like green grassy growths on him and stuff like that. And so, yeah, they have this notoriety and this awesomeness for publishing King stuff that you cannot get anywhere else. So, yeah, obviously, I mean, with shout-outs to my dudes Bev and Blue, who are both featured in this as well. I'm glad that this finally has seen publication, and I'm glad that Squad D has finally seen publication. It's not one like... I did reviews of 2 other Psy King shorts, specifically, that never were properly collected. The Reploids, or the Replanoids, was one of them, if I recall correctly. I believe that was in the Night Visions that I have down there. But, I mean, I've covered so many other ones, the 2 of which are going to be collected in the Full Throttle publication that's coming later this year at the end of September from his son Joe Hill. But, yeah, it's always fun to just see these Psy King stories that haven't been properly just assembled amongst a bigger collection. And I know I made reference to Just After Sunset and just that whole survivor's grief and just the ruminating about that, but especially dealing with the aspect of the 70s and with, Nam and the nastiness and the sadness associated with that. This has some connective tissue with Hearts in Atlantis, which we're going to be doing a 20th anniversary for sometime later this year as the book of the month proper. I don't think it sees its anniversary till sometime in the fall, but since we have more anniversaries of significance this year on Hail to Stephen King, then we will actually have months to cover. In May, I'm going to be starting up some of these polls on the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group, which if you're not a member of, I am the sole admin and moderator on there. So if you want to join Hail to Stephen King and just get some palaver, get some interest and some discussion together, it's a very cool Ka-Tet, and it's where we're going to be deciding on the programming for Hail to Stephen King here and what we should cover for some of the coming months. So that's pretty exciting. So Squad D, if you have any interest in checking this down or anything else, go to cemeterydance.com or jump on Amazon or eBay. But really check CD first, just to make sure that they haven't sold out of all of this stuff. And it's always better, as opposed to going through a third-party publisher or reseller or whatever, to get this from the source, because Cemetery Dance is the rat status. So I have been Jaime and Fuego, and thank you very much for joining me for the brief palaver here. It will be a longer episode coming up in our next installment, and then also on the 30th of April is where we are going to be having our next live stream. That's right, it's going to be all about Carrie for its 45th anniversary, which is taking place here in the month of April. Psy King's big break, which is pretty exciting, although the big break didn't necessarily come until he had the paperback rights for that, and then the De Palma option for the script and everything. But yeah, we're going to be having a live discussion about King's first published full-length novel, and if you want to get in on that discussion, it's going to be next Tuesday, April 30th, and I very much look forward to having all of you on there. Once again, as I said, Hail to Stephen King. If you want to be a part of the Facebook group and have some discussion, I would be humbled and honored to have your presence there. We have almost 500 peeps there. It's really the only thing that brings me onto Facebook, because the communion, the respect, the discussion, the palaver, it's all so very awesome. And they made my 150th episode, which I did live recently, so very special. And I've been Jaime and Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, my own personal YouTube, where this week I am unleashing my latest, the fourth in technically it's episode 3, but it's the fourth in the timeline order of the Star Wars films. Yep, that's right, I'm doing a review on Infuegotainment of Revenge of the Sith. And I'm actually in the midst of reading a Star Wars book right now called Master and Apprentice, which deals with Obi-Wan at the age of 17, when he was still a very young Padawan. That's right, going with Qui-Gon, and it has some interesting insight about. So Qui-Gon was trained by Dooku, and Dooku apparently had he had somebody that he trained before Qui-Gon, this guy named Rain, and that guy had kind of a crazy mean streak of sorts, and did things just a little I don't know, not quite according to your typical Jedi rules, and so that is a review that I'm also going to be putting up. Obviously, it's not horror, but that's going to be going up on Fuego before the end of the month as well, along with all kinds of Star Wars radness as the year goes on. But yes, this week on the 24th, may the 24th be with you. Yeah, Revenge of the Sith is going to be going up. So, but you're obviously here on the horror show, and I greatly appreciate your presence. So if you dig this brief bit of palaver where I was basically just gushing about a like 10-something page short story from Cemetery Dance and from Side Kings called Squad D, then you need to make sure to like, share, subscribe if you haven't done that already. Make sure to ring the bell so that you get all of the notifications about all of the film reviews, the trailer reactions, the the convention coverage. We're actually going to be, during the first weekend of May, we are going to be, as the horror show, in Dallas, covering Texas Frightmare as official press. We are so very stoked. Sam Raimi is there, Bruce Campbell is there, the awesome list goes on, and so if you are in the Dallas, Fort Worth area, please make sure to jump out, and you will probably see us there talking to booths and doing some convention coverage and doing all kinds of radness. Cecil and myself also just finished up all of our reviews from the Phoenix Film Festival and did a bunch of Patreon stuff as well, so yeah, it's been a very busy last few weeks between, well, everything going on in personal lives, but beyond that, hell, seeing 38 films in the span of 10 days at the Phoenix Film Festival. It was a pleasure and it was an honor, and it's always a pleasure and an honor to be with all of you here. So until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, I say hasta luego, cinemigos, and constant readers and viewers alike. I am hopeful that we get to share some palavers sooner rather than later. Once again, say thank you. And until that instance occurs, remember to stay scared. And read Stephen King. If you can track down Cemetery Dance, just read Cemetery Dance, man. But specifically in this case, Squad D.